Someone somewhere in the world is diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, every 5 minutes. There are over 10,000 people living with MS in Ireland and just under 3 million people globally. MS Day comes up on the 30th of May. There's a number of events in the country that are designed to raise awareness about what is a complex neurological disorder. And I'm very glad to say, joining us on Health and Fitness this evening, two people live in studio, Mary Leonard, community worker for MS Ireland in the Midlands. Mary, thanks for coming in to us. And from Tubber, Majella Heavin, who's part of the MS community in Ireland. Majella, thanks so much for coming in to us as well.
Thanks very much for inviting me, David.
Not at all. Mary, I'm going to start with yourself as the community worker for MS Ireland in the region. From your perspective, MS Day coming up, why is it important and what do MS Ireland hope to get out of it?
Well, MS Day, I suppose, it's a worldwide event. It's a global event, David. And the main purpose of it really is it's an opportunity to raise awareness. So here in Ireland, the MS Society uses it, to raise awareness about the condition. And even though it's a very, I suppose it's one of the most common neurological conditions amongst that younger age cohort. I suppose unless it comes to somebody's own doorstep, they don't actually know about it. So this is an ideal opportunity for us to do that, to raise awareness. So nationally there are some events that are taking place, and then we also have some events happening more locally as well.
Yeah, we can get into the details of what's coming up over the course of the week and on the day itself shortly. Just in terms of some of the information we can bring to our listeners now so that they have a more fundamental understanding about this. And the thing that always surprises me is, considering all of the development and intellect and investment in medical technology and knowledge, we still struggle to know how and where MS comes from and why some people have it and some people don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is complex in that regard, and a lot of research has obviously gone into, maybe finding out what causes it. So we still are not fully sure of the cause. It's considered now maybe to be more genetic and environmental factors that are at play there. But the main thing is, I suppose, to remember for people when they're diagnosed is that there are treatments now. And up to maybe 15, 20 years ago, treatments were very, very limited. And it's all about maybe encouraging people to manage their condition. So there is no cure, but most people can live a normal life with MS, maybe making some smaller adjustments here and there as they go. And we always encourage people to take a positive attitude. So most people now, when they are diagnosed with MS, they are actually encouraged to go on some of the treatments, and there's a choice of treatments, from tablet form to injections to infusions. So people are generally guided by their neurologist in that regard.
Yeah, and important as we are talking about the condition in a bid to raise awareness about it, I think one of the few things most people know about it is that it doesn't have a cure necessarily, but what maybe people don't realise is just how normal a life people tend to live when they do have it. And Majella, from your perspective, you've got multiple sclerosis. What's the nature of your MS? What's the actual classification of it?
I would have relapsing and remitting MS.
Okay. And Mary said there's treatments out there, so you're on a treatment as well, are you?
Yeah, and I've gone through a number of different treatments over the last 10, 12 years since I was diagnosed. And currently I'm on an immunosuppressant, which would lower your immune system so as your system doesn't attack your body.
And that's what MS ultimately does do.
Yeah, and it's usually on the nerves and things like that. But people's symptoms are all very individual and very different.
How did you initially find out that something was going on with you? How did the first symptom present itself?
My first symptom felt like sitting against a damp towel or a damp something on a chair. And it came and went for a couple of months, and I mentioned it to the GP. And the GP was very, very quick to know that there was something more than just, she just felt I should investigate further. And I did. And she said, do you want to go to Dublin or Galway? And I said, sure, I'll go to Galway. The shopping is grand that side. So that's why I chose that direction. And I'm very happy with the public service that I do receive.
Okay, what did you learn along the way then? You go from having this symptom, your GP directs you to get it looked into further. What followed from that point on?
From that point on, then I would have been sent for an MRI and scan, and I was referred to a neurologist, and the neurologist in Galway, he organised the MRI initially, and then they read it, and very, very quickly they came back to me with an urgent follow-up. And they had found some lesions on the brain, and when I heard lesions on the brain, I was like, holy Moses, what's going on, and panic stations. But really, once I spoke to them, they reassured me that a lesion on your brain per decade of your life is quite normal.
Okay, that's a very interesting expression or way of understanding this, that is not as fundamentally frightening as it sounds.
As that lesion word. Yeah.
Exactly. That's it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But I had more lesions than my chronological age. So that's why he wanted me then to try some treatment. And as previously mentioned, he felt that it might have been a once-off incident, which would be known as clinically isolated syndrome, but symptoms developed in the future after that, after a number of years.
Yeah. So
then my diagnosis would have changed then to MS.
And relapsing, remitting
Relapsing, remitting, yeah. And
that's been the nature of it since. Do you get regular checks and that type of thing?
Yeah, I do. And initially when I was diagnosed, I would have been checked maybe a bit more regularly, because they were trying to find out and to compare and contrast, because they treat symptoms, not disease. Because as you've said, there's no cure as yet. But it's the treatment of symptoms. So yeah, I would have been checked a lot more frequently. But when I began to manage my own label, because that's what it is, or another string in my bow. But I managed to try and control things and cope with things. So yeah, it's been an adventure. Well, I've met lots and lots of amazing people through having MS.
How do you meet people through having MS? What kind of ways and places?
Well, apart from Mary keeping ringing me to say, will you have a chat?
Good on Mary. I'm actually going to I'm going to ask you, Mary, shortly about that side of your work in a moment. But you can attest to that MS Ireland are good at reaching out to people and putting them together.
And yeah, very much so. But also destigmatising labels. And, it's to open your eyes and see that, we're all different, and it doesn't matter if it's MS you've got as a label, or it's asthma, or it's depression. We've all got something. And
we're all living with something.
We all have to cope, and if we don't cope, the options aren't as good. So we have to just cope, and that's it.
And coping is significantly easier when you're sharing problems with people, and you're
like-minded,
not holding it in.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I would do as my job as well. That's the type of things I do as well. So I teach as well. Okay. I'm a nurse as well. So.
Okay, you can relate to a lot of this then, and you can see the kind of humane benefit of the networking.
It's the mental health side of things that I work in. So even though I don't want to know the physiological side of it, it's the future. It's today and tomorrow and the future. That's what's important, because we can't change the past.
And that is, I think, a really valuable perspective if you can carry it forward. Mary, Majella just alluded to there, you're not shy of getting on the phone and keeping in touch with people once you know that they are part of the MS community, particularly, let's say, in your community area. And talk us through why you think it's important.
Yeah, I think people can feel quite... First of all, I suppose at the time of diagnosis, it's probably the most difficult time that people are going through on their MS journey. And I suppose being human, our thoughts are always going to go to the worst possible scenario, and people may not know other people perhaps who are mobile and active and working with MS, so they might associate with somebody perhaps who's maybe, using a wheelchair to get around. And so the whole, I suppose, negative attitude that can become embedded in people. So when they contact us, then we encourage them to stay in touch and give them, I suppose, kind of good information, good sound basic information about the condition. And sometimes people might ask also to link up with somebody else with MS, perhaps in the same age group and all of that. And I have to say that can work really, really well. And Majella has been very, very good in doing that for us as well. So it can be a very frightening time at the time of diagnosis. And then we often, I suppose, consider that it might take a year for a pattern of their MS to actually, to emerge, yes, and for things to settle. And then sometimes, people discover, we always encourage people not to go off making big, life-changing decisions in the early stages, because their fears very likely are going to be unfounded, So we might have people contacting us saying that, they probably have to pack in their job or, move back home with their parents. And we always encourage them not to go rushing into any of these decisions, because very often that these things are not required, that people can get on with their lives. And
the human condition is such that when we get a startling piece of news like that, we're just motivated to make a big change because we feel like that's a solution approach or something like that. But as you've underlined there, there might be very little that needs to be done, be it in the short term, medium term or long term, to live with this.
Yeah, that's right. And nowadays, especially, most employers are happy to accommodate people, to stay at work with their MS. And so we encourage people not to go making any big changes in their lives. And then very often people get on, with their lives. We may not hear from them as an organisation. They're getting on with things, and we're very happy with that. They know we're there if needs be, and if they need us. But also not just for the person who's diagnosed, but I also feel that for their family members, maybe spouse, partner, that can raise a lot of anxieties also and questions. So we're there also to, support people. And very often I find that maybe a spouse or a partner or a family member is reluctant to raise their fears with the person diagnosed because they don't want to add to their anxieties, So sometimes if I'm visiting people in their homes, somebody might escort me to the car, and it's at that point at the car that they might raise their concerns.
And you'd recognise these patterns. There's a human instinct to do things in a similar way with everybody.
Yeah. That's right.
MS Day is on the 30th of May, and it's a great opportunity to underline and raise awareness around the issue, its treatment, those who live with it, and those who live to support those who live with it. Some really surprising information that always comes out when we do these awareness pieces. One or two facts I wasn't aware of. Women are disproportionately affected by MS, more so than men, at a ratio of approximately 3-1, which is remarkable. Also, MS is more common in countries that are further from the equator, which underlines Mary Leonard's points about it being environmental as well as potentially genetic, but ultimately we have no certainty about what causes MS. Mary Leonard is a community worker for MS Ireland in the Midlands. Majella Heavin from Tubber is part of the multiple sclerosis community in this country. We are looking forward to what's happening across MS Day and I suppose the days around the 30th of May. Mary, you might talk to us about any of the highlights that you are looking forward to just after I let people know how they can get in touch with MS Ireland if anything that they're listening to this evening means that they would like to reach out. You can email them at midlands@ms-society.ie. That is, email midlands@ms-society.ie, and the website is ms-society.ie. The phone line is 090 647 1137 for the Midlands Regional Office. Mary, the events that are coming up over the course of the next week or so. Talk to us about what's happening.
Yeah, so there's some quite exciting events happening nationally, and then also some local things as well going on, David. So there is an annual coffee morning. This is every year to celebrate World MS Day in the MS Care Centre, which is the only, I suppose, dedicated respite centre for people with MS in Dublin. It's in Bushy Park. So World MS Day, they have a coffee morning there, which is usually a very nice event and
big turnout, I imagine.
A good turnout and very well attended. Yeah.
Okay.
And then also there is an event in Leinster House. There was a survey done recently, My MS, My Needs survey amongst the MS population, and the launch of the results of that survey is taking place in Leinster House, and I think that's the 29th, but the information is on the dates are actually on the website. And then there is also an information talk or a seminar, and the theme this year for World MS Day is diagnosis. So this is going to be a talk by a neuropsychologist and a neurologist, and it's around the uncertainty of diagnosis and uncertainties of MS, and that's taking place in Dublin, but it will also be available as a webinar for people who might like to link into that. And also around the country and in Dublin, a lot of public buildings get lit up in honour of World MS Day, so that will be happening too. And then locally, on Tuesday evening here in Tullamore, we have an information event, and we have a dietitian coming to talk, and everybody's being invited to that from County Offaly to attend that at 7:30 that evening. And next Monday evening we have it's an online kind of Zoom meeting for anybody within the 4 counties in the Midlands who wants to link in, and it's really just to make that connection. Just to have a chat and to make that connection with other people. So that's something that we do from our own office regionally every year as well.
Very good. There's loads going on. Were you about to add on to something there?
No, I think that was the
comprehensive
main thing.
list. Majella, it's a great number of events that Mary just ran through there. Will you be going to anything yourself?
I'm hoping to go and get to chat to a few people with the dietitian talk in the Charleville Centre next Tuesday evening at 7:30.
Very good.
Maybe the best bit of that is Mary's going to bring buns.
Right, and is Mary renowned for her bun making?
Well, we're going to test it.
Dead right. Well, I hope to hear back about these buns. But seriously, on the diet point. The MS community in Ireland, it seems there's an awareness that diet can be an important factor in how symptoms might present. Again, nothing's ever crystal clear when it comes to this thing, but be it with MS or how we live our lives generally, diet's important. Yeah,
overall diet's important, as is sleep, as is socialising, as is support, as is, having a positive outlook, which is Mary's focus on that always, is your positive attitude. For me, I know that if I look after myself from doing exercise to fresh air, sunlight, and, once I get all those things and I know I have the basics right, then I can deal with nearly anything that comes my way. Of course, there's going to be times where I'm going to lie down or I'm going to be tired or irritable. You wouldn't believe it to look at me, but yeah, sometimes I can be irritable. But the thing is, I'm human. This is only one small part of me. I am much more than MS. I am a mommy. I am a daughter. I'm a wife. I'm a nurse. I'm kind. I like walking. I like swimming. I like gallivanting as well. So that's all really important. It's what life is at the end of the day. It's real life. It's not stopping. It's just making the best of the hand of cards that we're dealt. Well, you're representing the community brilliantly in that respect. Mary, a point on the talk, for instance, with the dietitian. People will reach out for certainty in times of doubt, and when you get a diagnosis of MS, it puts you and places you in that position of doubt and uncertainty and insecurity. But it is important
that when you're reaching out for information, it's coming from places that are qualified, educated and reliable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where MS Ireland plays a role. And we always encourage people, get the facts right, get the valid information. And afterwards, because sometimes people might Google, and unfortunately they don't always get the best advice or information. So I think at least if people are armed with accurate, up-to-date information, then they're able to better, I suppose, decide what to pick and choose in relation to other. And I just want to, just to come in there, to pick up on something that Majella mentioned, David, and that is the importance of exercise also. And Majella mentioned that she likes to walk, and here in Tullamore we've been fortunate in getting lottery funding to run a Neuro Pilates class.
Very good.
It was really, really amazing. And really good for meeting like-minded people who, initially were very vulnerable and standoffish with each other. But I have met some really, really lovely people there, and their friendship is as important as the Neuro Pilates. And Catherine is amazing. She's a lovely woman.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have the services of Catherine, the teacher, the physio who specialised in Neuro Pilates. And we really encourage people to avail of physiotherapy. Now, MS Ireland does actually provide some online physiotherapy, and that all stemmed from COVID. And then we discovered that a lot of people actually like to do it online because they can fit it into their schedule.
Sure.
And there are different classes for various symptoms. Some of the classes are geared to specific symptoms of MS. And because everything is depending on funding, I suppose, so we try, when we do have funding, we try to put on things like the Neuro Pilates for people.
There's a whole lot of ground that we've covered this evening, and if anybody wants to listen back to it, as ever, you can get the podcast of the show on midlands103.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Look up Health and Fitness Midlands 103. If you want to reach out to MS Ireland, the Midlands Regional Office can be contacted by email midlands@ms-society.ie, or the website is ms-society.ie. You can phone the Midlands Regional Office on 090 647 1137. World MS Day is the 30th of May. Majella Heavin and Mary Leonard, thanks both of you for coming in to talk to us on the programme.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Giving us the opportunity. Thank you, David.